What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dean, aka the Blue Crusader, and today I'm here to show you a brand new construction game that you guys should be able to go play and enjoy. Anyone who watches this channel is mostly interested in construction and sandbox games, so I'm going to be showing you something brand new that came out last year today. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at Reworld, which is a sandbox MMO platform where you can learn how to code, hang out with friends and play together and create your own in-game worlds using some really awesome in-game construction tools and coding software. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first of all, you want to go to reworld.io. The link to this website shall be in the description below, so make sure to go down to the description to go straight to the website. Now you can see from these nice animations in the background, you can create a lot in this game, from spaceships to huge big towns and Christmas wonderlands. There's basically endless opportunities if you have a really good imagination and some skills. So there's two buttons on the website. The first one is play games, where if we click on it, it will download the software to play games on, and then there's also the download engine button. So you would just click download engine, and what this will do is it will actually download Reworld Studio. So all you have to do is just click on open at the bottom, or go to your downloads folder in Windows, and in your downloads folder you should have two new files. So depending which one that you clicked, which button, you can open up the software. So I'm going to open up this Reworld Studio Global, which we actually opened when we pressed download engine. And what this will do is it will open up the installer for us to install the software. Now there's a lot of cool mini games and fun to be had on Reworld. It's a nice little game which I've taken for a spin a few times, and I'm going to be showing you the software just briefly after we install it. As you can see, Reworld does actually get updated pretty regularly. If you go on the website, you can see that they already have a winter season update where the community can vote for certain features, which is really cool that the community can actually interact and give ideas on what's going to be in the game. You can see they even had Easter events and general updates along with a whole bunch of contests. They also have a Discord community which you can join if you're part of the game to connect to like-minded builders and players who play the game too. So when you open up the Reworld Studio software, it will actually download the software first of all. It'll come up with a small launcher with the download speed and the download progress, and this will be what will download all of the required files for us to actually install the software. Now this will take a while, but once this process has completed, we can begin the installation. And when the installer has finished downloading the software, it will launch the Reworld engine, which we can see in the background of the screen. This is the Studio test environment software which will allow us to build our own brand new games. Now I'm going to show you how to set up an account on the launcher and go through the tutorial process of how you play the game and how you can start creating for yourself. I've messed around with the game and the software a little bit before making this video, and it's a whole bunch of fun to actually play and explore. So when we log into the Reworld engine, it will have a few different things. So on the left hand side it has the news. It talks about revenue sharing policy with creators of the game who make content for it, current events like new trailers and winners of contests. So there's a big community behind this game, which is something which I really like. Not only is this a creative sandbox game where you can make anything you basically want to, there's a big focus on community and getting the players involved, which is a huge bonus to any game. So what we're going to do is we're going to register. So just click register. When you click register, this is obviously where you'll do the full process. So we're going to type in my email, I'm going to type in the username which we want. So my username is just going to be TBCYT, and we're just going to type in a suitable password for my account right here. And once you've typed in your username which you want and your email, what you want to do is where it says code, you want to press send. What this will do is it will give you a small timer of usually around a minute, and then you have to quickly check your email and find the verification email. So when you've typed in the correct email, you will get a verification code. Now I'd recommend using a Google Mail, aka a Gmail email for this process, because this seemed to work for me, and you'll receive a small verification code which you just want to highlight and copy from your email. Then you want to hold Ctrl and press V and paste it into the code section and press register. What this will do is it will create you an account, and then it will automatically log in for you inside the Studio software. So now we're actually inside the game and we can check out the tutorial, which is going to be super interesting. So all we need to do is press confirm and it will run us through the tutorial. This guide will walk you through the steps to create your very own game. Let's go. So you can see there's some really awesome example levels here, so let's jump into it. Getting started, press the select all option and the empty template map. Press confirm to start building on the new map. So this is just showing you how to use the studio software, how to use certain examples and example levels, and once we do that it will launch us into a blank canvas on the example level where we can start building. Let's get familiar with the key features in different areas in the Reworld engine interface. The main menu is pretty standard, you can access most tools and commands here. So on the left hand side we have all tools to save, upload the project and publish the map as an official level, and if we continue we can also import custom resources. The great thing about Reworld is you can import third-party resources, so if you have your own sound files, images or models, you can actually upload them and make them into in-game elements like characters, models and props for scenery, which is really cool. Then we can also publish the map to release it so other people can play it, and we have a few different useful tools and operations on the top bar which we can use as well. The hamburger menu, which is the small 3-layered menu, opens up the menu bar where we can access some features, and on the top left we have a few different things such as moving and snap operations. We can then move, highlight, rotate and resize, aka scale any of the parts in the scene on the main window using the first toolbar at the top. You can also change the collisions and constraint options, which determine the collision detection among objects, while the constraints checkbox determines the constraint relationship while moving these objects. The Boolean operations, which is this highlighted button up here, allows you to combine objects. The exclude button allows you to delete part of an object with another, and the split button allows you to undo this union, which basically means the grouping of these multiple objects together. Then these tools up here are basically the customization of the elements we have on the screen. So we can create, meaning we can make different shapes with this first button. We can change the color here and also the material of any of these parts if we want to customize the blocks. And then of course we have the grouping options, grouping and ungrouping, and certain control constraints. These are the run buttons. This is the run game button, which allows us to jump into the test environment to test the game out that we've built, and we can click right down on this button to start the game where the spawn point is. Then this function tab over here has the purpose of showing a few different buttons. So on here we can access the workspace manager, the terrains, the resources, animations and the store, where you can download free elements and objects to build your levels with, and also some paid ones with points. The store's really nice, you can buy all types of resources from here, and there's actually players in the game that post and publish their own objects which they can sell and buy on here, so there is actually an economy in this game as well. And of course this viewport is the main area of the engine, and we use the WASD keys as well as E and Q on the keyboard to move around on. Now this workbar here is all of the elements inside your project, so the game settings, the teams which your players will drop into, the starter pack, so what the player starts out with like tools and weapons, the players in the server, and all things inside the workspace like the elements and the pieces of terrain and objects. This just lets you organize everything inside your scene and put them in the right folders. Then the properties panel allows you to change and modify any objects of a certain selected object, and all the attributes which you can edit will come up on the right hand side. And of course this community section at the top lets you check out news from the official community channel. So this is the completed UI tutorial, so this just shows us how we can use the Reworld software to build our own levels. We can also revisit this tutorial if we don't know how to do anything which we've gone over before, and go back over it so we can get to grips with how to use everything. So now we're basically dropped inside this engine to create whatever we want to now that we've gone over the basics. So what I said before, WASD, we can move around, zoom in and out with the W and S keys, and D and A pans from side to side, and holding right click allows us to pan our camera in basically a 360-degree motion wherever we want to go, in tune with using the keyboard keys to move around. So that's the basics of movement inside the engine. So let's just do a few basic things and let me show you an overview of what we can actually do in the studio software. So perhaps I might make a few more videos on more complex tutorials on how to build things, but I'm just going to show you the basics of putting a few objects into the scene and running the game, just to show you what everything's like. So on the left hand side we have this terrain button. We can click create terrain and it will allow us to create a terrain set, and just press create down there and it will create the project, and as you can see now the whole world has been covered in a grass texture. And then we can also press add, and it gives us this highlight box where we can actually paint terrain up and down all along the level. Now you can actually change the texture under here, so we could paint water, So you can make like a huge giant tsunami which is coming and overflowing over the whole map. So you can basically just mess around with these things. You can change the size of the brush, which just means this blue circle, wherever we selected, will make a bigger amount of terrain depending on the size of your brush. And you can change so many different textures and mess around with things. Now of course this looks extremely ugly because I'm not really putting much creativity into this right now, but if you mess around for a while and have some real artsy skills, you can make some really great software. Now to undo things, you just hold Control and press Z to undo any progress that you've made. So we could paint a little bit of terrain which divides the middle of the map, for an example. So we could make a small wall which parts the map in two and kind of divides it where the player is. So if you wanted to kind of like build a wall or segregate part of the map from the other, you could do this with terrain as well if you want to kind of split the level in half. So that's one example we can do with the terrain. We can increase the height of the terrain, we can decrease the height of the terrain, we can smoothen the terrain to make it appear less jagged and less harsher on the edges with this tool, which makes everything look a lot more neater than how we built it originally. And we can also flatten terrain as well, so as you can see this terrain which is a little bit higher, we can make that a bit more even. And we can also paint the terrain in small patches so we can go over it, and some of it could be desert and some of it could be water. So this is the basics of terrain. If we press the plus down here, this goes into the model browser, which brings up a catalogue of all the models and elements that we can actually use to build our scene with. So for an example, if we wanted to place down this bookstore and make a little town for ourselves, we just left click it and it'll drop it into the scene. Then we can hold left click and we can move it to where we want to. Going over what we did before in the tutorial, you can go to the top where it says rotate, and then we can also rotate this into the right angle where we want it to be. So now we've got a little bookstore in there, and we could just do this with a few different things. So we could scroll through and find another house, for an example, drop this into our world, and then change to the movement button and move it where we want it, and then rotate this as well. So now you can see we're building ourselves a nice little neighborhood with some of the housing elements and buildings which we're using from the models browser. So these are the basics of building a little bit of town and city setup so you can build some levels on it. Now some things are a little bit smaller by default, so what you could do is you could go on resize mode and we could scale it up, and this works with most objects so we can make them a very similar height and scale to the others so they're not smaller. The bookstore is completely out of scale in comparison to the others, so we can also size this up as well to make this appear a little bit bigger. So this is just the basics of adding objects in, dropping them into the game world, and building a small little bit of a level. We could also drop this combat airship into the scene, so now we have a jet plane in our level too. Like I said before, when I said there's limitless opportunities in this game and the studio to build, there really is, because if we go down you can see there's 215 pages of objects which we can scroll through and add to our world, which is just ridiculously crazy. This just looks really awesome now, and we have some really amazing things which we can mess around with. So we could also add a car into the level as well, and just put that alongside this house, because every house needs to have a vehicle in, because otherwise they'll have nowhere to go. So now we have a nice little city setup, and we could put another car in, and we can put this car next to the cafe as well. So now we have a few different things. The only thing we're missing right now is a spawn point. And also you can filter the certain categories: vehicles, weapons, props. So we can put an assault rifle weapon in, for an example, down here. We can put creatures into the world, so we can spawn things like snakes. We can spawn trees into the world as well. So now we can actually have some foliage in the world. So although you can import custom models and build your own custom elements, most things are already in the game made by other people, so we can just spawn in trees, we can spawn in buildings, and we can just build a whole game or special level just from what's already available in the game, which is a really cool feature. I'm going to select this explore and escape map and press confirm and load this up, and we're going to jump in and test this one out. So this is another example world, and I'm just loading this to test you what it's like when we actually test out the game. So I'm going to click play here, and it's going to jump into the Reworld test environment and let me try out this game and play it for myself. So as you can see, this is the character which it spawns you with by default, and the controls are just WASD and holding right click to move around the camera. So I'm just testing out this level. The game's quite a lot of fun. It has some pretty cartoony graphics and fun style sound effects. So I'm going to jump across all these obstacles and hopefully we'll actually not fall down. Some of these test environment levels are pretty tricky. Some of them are quite easy. But for the most part, you can have fun with these custom levels. It's a lot better when you actually create them yourself. But the challenge is here that some of them will actually destroy the character, so you've got to be super careful when you actually run through some of these obstacle courses. So this is just an example of one of the available maps which you can toy around with on Reworld when you launch up the game in Reworld Studio. And when we get to the next checkpoint, this is where we'll spawn if we drop out of the world. So thanks for watching this video. Make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to check out Reworld and try out the game for yourself, make sure to click the link in the description below and install it and give it a try. If you like games with creativity and if you want to learn how to code and make levels or your own games, then this is a perfect engine and video game to start off with. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.